Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Every Day is a New Day show and coaching channel here on YouTube. My name is Kim O'Neill. I am the host of the Every Day is a New Day podcast and live show, as well as a transformational confidence coach, helping you to feel more confident in both interviews, whether it be a job interview or a podcast interview, but even beyond that, in your everyday life, feeling confident, connected to who you are, knowing who you are, being able to release and heal the past so you can confidently and triumphantly move forward. And so I'm so grateful to be here with you today. Today marks week 4 in my What Self-Love Looks Like series. And so if you are here with me live, feel free to go ahead and comment in the comment section. Let me know what's coming up for you. What are your takeaways? And at the very end, I'm going to be pulling cards just to expand on today's message. And so if you'd like me to pull a card specifically for you, let me know in the comments and I will do that as well. So, and if you see me look away a little bit, it's simply me looking at my notes so that I cover as many pieces of today's conversation as are what's showing up for me to be shared with you in this moment. And with that said, always knowing that these conversations can always go so much deeper and, may even be tweaked depending on whatever your circumstances are. So just a little caveat that pretty much goes with any conversation you hear anywhere, but just wanted to acknowledge that part. It is my mission that as many people on the planet feel as whole as possible. Keyword, feel. You are whole, you are not broken, you don't need to be fixed. And yet you may know what it feels like to feel unwhole, broken, and thinking you need to be fixed. But that is not the truth. That is a lie. The truth is that you are whole. And the way that you can be in that space and in that energy and really carry that forward through your life is by knowing what that feels like for you. And I have found that self-love is very much a key to feeling more confident in knowing who you are, because you also have that greater sense of feeling whole from the inside out. So that is some of the purpose and intention of behind this whole 11-week series. And want to also add, and I've said this in previous videos too, so this, right, there are new people who may pop on these videos. So want to also just add, what I'm sharing with you are the top 11 self-love, I want to say mindsets even, that have really made their presence known in my world, for me personally, as well as the people that I work with, the people that I connect with. And I have found these to be very universal. You may or may not find them to be relevant to you. So as we're in conversation today, this is ultimately a space for you to uncover, what does self-love look like for you? So whether today's topic resonates with you or not, maybe it gets your creative juices flowing, and going, ooh, can we, that little piece that Kim just said, that there's something there. And I want to take that piece with me today. So take what resonates, leave what doesn't. And we're going to begin with today's. So we're going to just do a quick little recap. Week 1 was self-love looks like accepting all of who you are. Week 2, self-love looks like feeling into your personal value. Week 3, self-love looks like prioritizing and acting on your needs first. And today, week 4, self-love looks like knowing and honoring your boundaries. So if we break apart that one piece, we've got the knowing piece, the honoring, and the boundaries, right? So how can you know what your boundaries are when you don't know what your boundaries are? Right? How can you know something when you don't know it? The way to start, and this is just one thing, I'm sure you can discover other ways to go about this, but an easy way is to start by look back at times on your life. Just take a moment to recall. You don't need to step back into the energy, but think about times in your life when you may have felt disrespected or disregarded. And so just start to analyze some of that stuff. What was said to you? What was done to you? How did you respond? And I just want to say, I'm getting little alarm bells, as a coach and stuff. Coaching is not about looking back. Coaching is about moving forward. And yet, if you don't really know how you got into a situation in the first place, and if you tend to be a person that gets caught up in your head, it can be immensely helpful for you to be able to see the trail of how things led to where they ended up. Okay. So that is my take on that, and just wanted to share that piece. So think about a time when you felt disrespected or disregarded. When you don't already know what your boundaries are, it can be easy to fall into not doing anything to honor your boundaries, right? Because if you don't know what the boundary is, then you don't really know when it was disrespected, when it wasn't honored. And so, for instance, I'm going to give an example. For instance, let's say you decide to enter into a partnership with some sort of other person for any reason whatsoever. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Another caveat. Everything we're talking about here, and this may sting, everything we're talking about here, whether another person is involved or not, always comes back to you. It's always about you, right? So everything you experience, right? If someone hurts you, ultimately, there's something within you that you can do to actually shift that and heal. And whether or not someone else believes that you're the person who hurt them, there's something going on with them that they can shift and do to heal them. Okay. So, and that's really powerful. That's a very powerful piece, because ultimately this is all about taking your power back, taking your responsibility in how your life experience is unfolding. And it's not negating that that there can be painful, challenging, frustrating experiences in life and interactions with other people. We're not negating any of that. We're simply saying that those things can happen, and underneath all of that, you still have the power. Okay. So, but first, let's look at what a potential scenario could be. So let's say you enter into a partnership with some sort of person for any reason whatsoever. Could be romantic, work-related, any other scenario you may come up with, right? Maybe you play sports together on some sort of sports team. And you recognize at the start of this partnership that there's something going on in your world that would be helpful if you communicated with that person so you two can remain on the same page with one another. And so you share that, you communicate that to this other person. And as time goes on, you notice that this other person, I told them this one thing, but the other person continues to do and behave in ways that imply that maybe they didn't actually hear you, right? They didn't hear what you said at the very beginning. And there may be some extenuating circumstances that would lead you to believe, well, okay, I guess, it may make sense that, okay, I guess why they did that. And it's, I'm not sure if they heard me or not, but okay, I guess I can find reasons to justify why they're doing that. But maybe as time goes on, you realize, it'd be helpful for me to go ahead and communicate this thing again. So, right, so we're still all on the same page, right? So that we can have an enjoyable partnership for both of us, because it's important. You may not recognize that what you shared with them is a boundary, and yet you recognize that this thing going on with you is important. And so you decide to share it again, right? You're giving them the benefit of the doubt. You share it again. And yet again, by third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 10th time, you're still noticing that they are acting as if they never heard you the first time. And you notice now that there's a pattern. And you start to stop making excuses because you realize there aren't any extenuating circumstances. They're refusing to respect what I've shared with them. And we could take this much deeper, but hopefully that little scenario is enough to get you thinking about maybe something that's happened in your life, or just paint a picture of a potential scenario. And in a situation like that, what you have a boundary that you communicated and another person who has disrespected that, who has dishonored that. You have been upfront and communicated your situation, and another person repeatedly disrespects and disregards what you've told them. And whether intentionally or not, is only acting in a way that best serves their interests. That is what crossing a boundary looks like. So, in an instance like that, you may not have thought that when you were upfront with that person about your particular boundary, that you were conveying a boundary, but you now know that you were by how you felt when that person continued to disrespect you. You know that your boundary was crossed by how it felt. That's really, really key. And that's another reason why it's really, really helpful to get in tune with how things feel for you and recognizing them as being something worthwhile, something that matters. That's your internal GPS, your internal system saying, wait a second, something's happening. And if you aren't in the space of being in tune with how things feel in your body, it can be first off, it may feel super subtle. So it may not really feel like anything. And if you're in the habit of continuing of not already tuning into how you feel, you may not necessarily even notice how uncomfortable it feels if you've already been in the pattern of accepting when you feel something that feels uncomfortable. I know this is going off on a tangent. Anyway, but that is very key, okay? So start to tune into how do things feel? Does something feel off about this? Because that is a huge message for you. So now here's the catch. And I already started to touch on this earlier, but here's the catch. By not knowing what your boundary truly was in the first place, right? Like even though you may have communicated, hey, you know what, it'd probably be a good idea for me to share this thing about myself, but maybe you weren't able to identify that that was a boundary. So by not knowing what your boundary truly was in the first place and or honoring it, right, responding to it when it was disrespected, you were actually the one dishonoring your own boundary. Dishonoring yourself in a way because, number one, you didn't actually know where the boundary was. And number two, dishonoring your boundary if you didn't respond to it when you noticed that it was being disrespected. So that may mean different things for different people. Maybe it would mean the very first time that you noticed it. Maybe it would mean the 10th time, whenever you noticed it. So don't get too particular about that piece, but did you respond to it and how? So that's why it's so helpful for you to know what is a boundary for you and that it is a boundary so that you can know what it looks like when it's being crossed. So to start gaining clarity on how to know what your boundaries are, again, look back on times in your life when you felt disrespected or disregarded. Whether or not you were upfront with that person about your boundary, you know one was crossed by the way you felt. And you'll know if it was deliberately crossed or not, based on if you did tell that person ahead of time what your boundary was. So that's a huge red flag for you right there, okay? You know, although there's responsibility within you, if someone is repeatedly disrespecting your boundaries, that's a red flag that you may or may not want to, that's red flag for you to do something about that connection. Okay. I'll leave that up to you. What that means is that a connection that is really healthy for you to continue to have? Or would it actually be healthier for you to disengage from that partnership? So start to write these scenarios down as you're thinking about times when that come up for you. when you've been disrespected, your boundaries have been crossed, start to write these things down just to get a log going. And this is, again, just to help you gain some clarity, okay? Just to help you put those pieces together. We don't want to keep it all up here, okay? You can keep a lot up here, you can process a lot up here, and yet it can all get twisted around and get very complex and confusing. And it can be immensely helpful to take what's in here, put it down on paper so you can look at it and even be able to now see it from an observer perspective, right? Up here, it's super close to you. On paper, you actually have some distance with it, right? Even just from the physical paper to your eyeballs, you have some distance, and you can now even take an observer stance, taking a look and reflecting on those times. So start to generate a log for yourself. That's one possibility of how you could start to gain clarity on what your boundaries are. The healthy thing is to be able to not only know what your boundaries are, but be able to communicate those to people in advance. Again, with a situation that makes sense. There may be some situations where it doesn't, but I do want to highlight that piece because if you do know what they are, it can be immensely healthy for your relationship, for you to communicate them in advance. When you do, you're setting your relationships up to be healthy for both parties. If when those boundaries get crossed down the line, you will now know with certainty when a boundary is crossed. Oh my gosh, what a gift that is, right? Woo, what a gift it is to know when something's been crossed. It may feel awful, maybe a very unpleasant situation to experience. And what a gift it is for you to actually know what's happening as it's happening. So let's move into that second piece. Now, how can you honor your boundaries? We've already started to touch on that, but let's just be real specific with that too, okay? You can honor your boundaries before they're crossed by communicating them, right? After they're crossed, you can honor your boundaries by standing up for yourself, acknowledging the incident and doing something to balance out the situation by either expressing what boundary was actually crossed, by attempting to resolve the situation in some manner, if that makes sense, or maybe it's at the point where it's actually healthiest for you to just literally remove yourself from the situation. You will know what's best, especially based on the patterns that have developed within the context of that relationship and how long that boundary has been getting crossed, has been dishonored. You will know what's healthiest for you. And if you're not, absolutely reach out to me. Let's connect. Let's discuss your situation. And I'd love to support you in getting clarity on that. It also is a possibility. Let's throw this out there that when a boundary is getting crossed, it can feel like the other person's doing it intentionally. And maybe they are. But maybe, just maybe, that person is not aware. Maybe they're lacking some awareness. Even if you've communicated up front what your boundary is, right? There's always benefit of the doubt. You don't actually know what's going on in someone else's head. And at the same time, I'm not making excuses for people either, okay? But there's always the possibility that this other person is lacking a certain level of awareness that they truly don't know that they're crossing a boundary. You can choose to honor your boundary in a calm, respectful way to both you and the other person. It doesn't have to be an either-or situation. And so again, this is based on your circumstances and what's already taken place and evolved within the context of your situation. But that is just a starting place for you to start to get clear on knowing what your boundaries are, connecting with, what does it feel like when a boundary is crossed? Recognizing that you actually have the initial responsibility in showcasing that your boundaries are worth honoring. Now, here's the other piece of this, is that in order to also be able to articulate what your boundaries are, it is also going to require for you to see the value in who you are. So much so in knowing your personal value that you know there's value in identifying what is a boundary. Does that make sense? So before you can even get to knowing what your boundary is, you're going to first have to even know how awesome you are. That's essentially what I'm saying. How awesome you are, how amazing you are, how loved you are, how valuable you are. And so really honing in and connecting to your personal value. And yes, feeling how that feels internally within your physical body. Some people may not need to get to that space, but I think that's the deepest place you can get, to where you actually feel your value within your body. That's just an amazing experience to have. So when you know your personal value first, then you also know there's value in knowing what your boundaries are. And then being able to do something about when those boundaries are crossed. So this is why week 2 was about feeling into your personal value. And so if today's conversation about boundaries is resonating with you and you want to connect deeper with that piece of value and you haven't watched week 2, go ahead and watch week 2. That's right here in the playlist of What Self-Love Looks Like on YouTube. And so I want to point out that that's very key, right? Otherwise, you could have very loose boundaries, think that it's not important to identify what your boundaries may be, and then subsequently repeatedly be crossing those boundaries. Here's the thing too. Your boundaries may be getting crossed simply by your actions. In what way, right? This doesn't have to even involve anybody else. Let's say you don't really know what your personal value is. You're not really connected to that. And you don't really know what your boundaries are. So there's a level of not fully honoring yourself, not fully respecting yourself, just within that. And let's say you now, as you go about your daily life, you see people at work, you encounter people in the store. How do you talk about yourself? Do you talk about yourself in a way that is disrespectful to you? Do you so much not realize your own value? You know what? I didn't come up with any examples for this piece of this. This is just coming up as I'm in the moment here with you. But basically, just do you talk poorly about yourself to other people? Do you make self-deprecating comments? Do you say and do things that imply you are not worthy, that imply you are not already lovable and amazing? If so, that right there, without anybody having to do anything else, is also a way of you disrespecting yourself and not honoring your own boundary, because you didn't know it was a boundary, right? You didn't know that you actually, that's not even true, right? You are so worthy, but you didn't know that first. And that led you to talk about yourself and say things that were not consistent with the truth of who you actually are. So anyway, so if this is resonating with you, you might definitely want to check out week 2. And okay, and so that concludes today's discussion on what self-love looks like in terms of knowing and honoring your boundaries. And as you can see, I have lined this up because they build upon one another. There is going to be some overlap in some of these weeks. And, especially now, today you saw a little bit of that. And especially moving forward, there's going to be a little bit more of it. And yet each week in its own right is very key. So I'm going to continue to have individual conversations about each of these. And if this is resonating with you and you're in a situation, just in a place in your life where you're recognizing that maybe you don't fully love yourself, or you don't fully know the truth of who you are, or you're in a space where um, you are continuing to be disrespected, dishonored, things like that, then I absolutely invite you to connect with me on KimO'NeillCoaching.com. There's a link down below in the comments. Schedule a free coffee chat and let's connect that way. And I'd love to be of service to you at this time. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to move into the card pulling portion of today's conversation. And I am super excited to share with you. I have a brand new deck. This was gifted to me. How to Love Yourself Cards by Louise Hay. And you are the first to get to experience, well, my deck anyway. So let's see what added message wants to come through for today's conversation. And actually, let's see here. Okay, that first card I want to actually share with you too. Let's see here. And whenever a deck is brand new, sometimes they're super slippery, or sometimes they don't always like pop out. But so let's see here. What message wants to come out and be shared as an extension of today's conversation about knowing and honoring your boundaries? I may just have to pull one. Oh, okay, there we go. Oh, there's like a whole bunch here. Let's see. Let's share them all. Okay, the first one is, oh, there's two sides. Oh my gosh. Okay, we'll see. Okay. Ooh, some of these have a front and back, some don't. Okay, this one says, I am in harmony with all that surrounds me. I am at peace. And the back says, I affirm only the good in life. Yes, I completely agree with that too. You will know if looking back on previous situations in your life, I know there's people that are going to disagree with me on this. It doesn't matter. You will know if it is beneficial to you to reflect on your previous experiences and life patterns. You will know if that's helpful or not. If it's not, another thing you can simply do, okay, is to simply affirm right here, right now, you have value. You are amazing. And that you choose to know and honor your boundaries. You can simply affirm that right here, right now. And if you don't already have clarity on what your boundaries are, you can hold space open so that they can come to you throughout your day. Or maybe you do already know what your boundaries are. And so, yeah, you start to just get clear on those within your head. And choose that from this moment forward, you will always honor those boundaries. And if you encounter a person who chooses to do otherwise, you will do something about it. So that absolutely is an option. And that works. There is value in that. But I know there are some of you out there that's not going to be enough, okay? So that's where I was talking about. Then fine, assess for your previous patterns. So awesome. That was our first card. Next card is, ooh, this is so good. It is my birthright to express myself in ways that are fulfilling to me. It is your birthright to feel good. It is your birthright to know your personal value. It is your birthright to be able to stand up for yourself. It is your birthright to have healthy relationships. It is your birthright to be respected. And here's the thing, in this human experience that you're having, you have a responsibility to claim that birthright, to really step into that and be in that, to not expect or require other people to innately respect you, to automatically honor your boundaries. Because actually, here's the other piece. What may be a boundary for you may not be a boundary for someone else. So that I know can be a little, there's some things that it'd be like, what? Right? Because there's so many things that represent or reflect respect or a boundary for the majority of us. But there may be some things that are unique, to you as well, and to those you encounter, right? So it is my birthright to express myself in ways that are fulfilling to me. And the back says, I freely express who I am. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, what else we have? We have, these are like kind of sticking together, but such a beautiful deck. I love this deck. We have, I rise above all limitations. I rise above all limitations. The back on this one says, when I am ready to make positive changes in my life, I attract whatever I need to help me. So all of these cards, I totally put that in front of my face. All of these cards can be used as affirmations. This one is like really popping out and standing out to me. So if you want to pause the video and write that down, if it resonates with you, of course, right? When I am ready to make positive changes in my life, I attract whatever I need to help me. Hey, you could just take off the first part and just use, I attract whatever I need to help me. You can even switch it up a little bit. Let's remove the word need because the need implies lack. Let's say, I attract all resources to help me. I attract the resources to help me. There you go. Awesome. Yes. We all benefit from resources, and that's coming from a more neutral state, to say it that way. Here we have another one. Okay, front says, I am good enough. Yes, you are. There is no need to struggle to be better. All I need to do is love myself more today than yesterday and treat myself as someone who is deeply loved. Thank you, Louise Hay. To treat yourself as someone who is deeply loved. So we simply have here confirmation, how it all comes back to you. And it all comes back to the various ways that you love yourself. You love yourself by, knowing which boundaries are. I'm not going to go off on a tangent here. Yeah. If you have questions or comments, let me know. The work I do, let's see here. Oh, I accept all of my, hello. Is she not speaking my language? It's what I've been talking about. Okay, Louise Hay and I are on the same pathway, right? Week 1 was, I accept all of myself. I accept all of myself. Accepting all of who you are, yeah. So the back says, the work I do on myself is not a goal. It is a process, a lifetime process. I choose to enjoy the process. I choose to enjoy the process, right? This is beautiful. Okay. And, this last one is nothing. It was, never mind. Okay. But this one I also wanted to share with you. So every deck of cards always comes with some sort of introductory type card, welcome message, that kind of thing. So this is Louise's, and there were just portions of this I wanted to read to you, but let me just start from the beginning. So this is what it looks like. It says, Dear friends, Louise Hay always said that there is only one thing that heals every problem, and that is to know how to love yourself. Every thought you think is creating your reality. So choose positive thoughts about yourself and about life. When we fill our minds with love, there is little room in our world for anything else to manifest. Remember that self-care is not selfish. Self-love allows you to love others. We cannot help on a worldwide basis unless we come from a space of great love and joy on an individual basis. Allow the words in this deck to remind you of these truths. And okay, then one more piece here. Remember, as Louise would say, in the vast infinity of life, all is perfect, whole, and complete. And so are you. Exactly. That's what I've been saying. That's what this is all about. And I want to highlight here, she said, remember that self-care is not selfish. And then she immediately went into self-love allows you to love others. So self-care is not selfish. It's one of the healthiest things you can do for yourself. And self-care is a form of self-love, but self-love is so much more than just self-care. And you know what? Okay, I know what all 11 of these weeks that I'm doing, we could actually call all of these forms of self-care. So yeah, I may revise my statement from before. Last week I was talking about self-care is part of self-love, but self-love is so much more. You could look at that in different ways. The point is that self-love and self-care goes beyond, getting a massage, a pedicure, taking a nap, reading a book. Those are great. Those are, that's self-care, that's self-love in action. And all of the things we're talking about in this 11-week series, take everything so much deeper, right? Think about it. You're getting your massages regularly. You're saying positive affirmations to yourself. You're taking time out to rest and read a book. And yet, if you don't know what your boundaries are and you continually allow people to disrespect your boundaries, where's the balance of self-love, right? The goal isn't, I'm going to do these kind things for myself and yet continue to neglect these other areas that support me and having healthy interactions with other people, right? And allowing me to be respected in the outside world. So all of these 11 weeks are helping you to go beyond the little things that you may do for yourself that are fantastic and that absolutely add up, so that you can carry forth with you a much greater sense of you standing in your truth and knowing who you are, knowing that you are worthy of so much love that comes from you first. So I get told that, Kim, sometimes you just talk about things and it's so deep. And I gotta tell you, I can't help it. It's just who I am. It comes naturally. So if some of this was too deep, or if it was maybe a lot to take in one video, one conversation, you don't have to digest it all at once, right? Take away one piece, one element of what was shared here today, and just kind of, sit with that for a little bit. Just digest that little piece. And once you feel good with that, or once that, you find some greater ease with that piece, maybe come back and watch the video again. See if there's another piece that pops up for you. So I hope this conversation has been helpful to you today. Thank you for your likes, your subscribes, your shares. If you find that this conversation would benefit someone else in your life, it would be awesome if you would share it with them as well. But most of all, I hope that it's been in service to you, really connecting with how amazing you are and having a deeper sense of what it means to love yourself. Let me know what you're taking away in the comments, and I will see you next Monday for week 5 of what self-love looks like.